it's kind of a grunge Saturday.
I don't think it is, but...
Well, you know, that just had to be the music I fell on when I was loading up my thing here, my audio.
That's Grinch music?
That's grunge. Not Grinch.
Grunge, right.
Grunge. I might have some Grinch music. Wait, I'm looking. I could. It's entirely possible. Might not be in here. Yeah, I do have the internet, somewhere. But I'm not going to go surfing for it. But I might have it in the player someplace. No Grinch music in the player today.
I'm going to go seek country and western music for
country and western
for a little home event next week.
Wow, you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. Okay, welcome back to Grog Talk. Steve McDonald, Mike Rogers, Ian and Jody Underwood. School choice, education, cost, and
the beautiful tree.
And the beautiful tree.
So the beautiful
Let's
tree
go.
Is a book that I don't remember the name of the author. So somebody decided to do some research, look around the world, in the poorest countries in the world, to see how the poorest people in those countries were educating their kids. And what they found was in places like Africa, China, and India, there were these, it was actually kind of interesting how he found them. They were not on the government's radar. They found a bunch of private schools that were just homegrown. That parents who either couldn't get their kids to the government schools or didn't like the government schools, because in places like Africa, apparently the teachers come in and just either, if they show up, they sit at their desks and read their newspapers or whatever, and they're not even teaching the kids. And we don't typically have that problem in this country, so there's different issues. And
what's the book called again?
The Beautiful Tree.
Okay, I have internet, so I'll look it up.
Yeah. In China, they found that some towns were just way too far from government schools, so they had to just have their own solutions. So different problems in different places that were trying to solve. And what they found was the kids were getting, they were learning at least as well as the kids in government schools, and not worse. And the costs were minimal. What they ended up doing, because this is the poorest of the poor, don't forget. So everybody's worried about costs. Like how could a young family afford to send their kids to school? What they end up doing is charging a maximum of like 10% of anybody's salary. So it's a sliding scale. And the poorest of the poorest of the poor would get scholarships that the other parents would pay for. But they are cooperatives in that sense. And everybody agrees to it all over the world to do it like this. So 10%.
Well, they know those other parents, too, because they're in the same
village.
Town. They're not
That's right.
taking the money and sending it to Concord
over
or
there.
Manchester
or D.C.
Yeah,
back to Concord. And back to Manchester.
Right. Skim. Yep.
James Tooley.
Yeah,
there we go.
Author.
Yeah, and that's how we get to the point where all the money ends up in a more and more centralized place, which then lords it over the rest of us because they've stolen our money and now we have to beg to get it back.
Well, exactly. So
we have to let boys use the girls' locker room if we want our money.
Bathrooms, yeah, that's right. But you seem to be of two minds here, right? On the one hand, you don't like that the money's been taken away. On the other hand, you do. That's what I just heard you say.
Do you think it's necessary?
Maybe.
The more local that occurs, the better. But I tend to subscribe to the need for the schoolhouse. Now, I like what you say about an alternative way of funding it, because that's really the dilemma that has to be solved, is how do you fund the schools when the people that need them the most typically can afford them the least?
Well. Exactly. And that's the same problem even getting back to a place like Croydon. If, the only people who have choice right now or before are the rich kids, the rich families. The poor kids have to go to their district school because their family can't afford to send them anywhere else.
Well, and that's right. And that's why vouchers make a whole lot of sense for precisely that reason, because it frees everybody up.
It does.
The question is then, how do you drive down the costs? If the schools were competing for the vouchers, just possibly.
Well, we already know that works because when we first sat down and you talked about Croydon going to this basic, like a voucher system, really, that schools were competing for their money.
People lowered their tuition, some of the schools in the area.
A little bit until the bounce occurs, and you're going to have kids taking out loans to go to middle school.
Oh, my.
That's what's going to happen.
They'll get scholarships first, right? We'll send them to the Children's Scholarship Fund.
The Beautiful Tree, because I haven't read it yet.
What?
Are they asking for money from the other parents only? or from everybody?
Just the other parents.
Right.
Yeah, just the
Big
kids who are sending their
difference,
kids
right?
to
So
school.
Because you don't have retired people who don't have children.
If the
paying for it,
parents
you don't
had to
have-
get together and fund education, it would be a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think if you have to have the parents get money from people who are not parents, I would make one small change. They have to go door to door and ask for the money.
That's right.
I want to see the parents come to me and say, your responsibility for my child is $78. Give me the $78.
Yeah, especially when it comes to special ed.
That's what I want to see.
go
Yeah,
off
the
and-
special ed guy. Yeah, your responsibility for
I don't
my
have
child
that. Here's a banana.
is $1,700. Give me the $1,700.
Can I give you a pig instead?
Yeah, exactly. How
Because
about a
then,
goat?
along with the money, you get to give them a piece of your mind.
Right, and it's like
Right,
having
well,
a citizen legislature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your house rep
And-
is down the street. You go knock on his
Right.
door. Excuse me.
So that would make it.
You
that
asked
much-
for this.
yeah. So that's the thing not to forget about the beautiful tree is it's the parents educating their kids.
Very
They're
good
the
point.
ones who are interested. They're the ones who are like, yes, if I were in your situation, I would want to get that money from the other parents. There's a lot of community there that isn't there if they're suddenly going door to door and saying, I know you don't have kids and you never had kids, but,
But
you know
you
what?
need to pay anyway.
Give us the money.
Give me your goat.
Yeah.
Give me your goat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the education thing too, I may as well talk about this. But Pork Fest is coming up next month, the Porcupine Freedom Festival.
Where somebody gave them their pig.
Yes. Bardo Farm.
Bardo Farm. We have
Bardo
pig
Farm.
roast
You have
every
pig
year
roast
up there,
yep.
actually. Yep. But I'm organizing the education activist sessions, and so there's going to be some interesting speakers every day talking about sort of alternative learning environments. There's a panel of experienced homeschooling parents to talk about how do you figure out what your kids need, each individual kid. We're having a school board panel on Saturday talking about what kind of changes can we actually make on the school board. I'm going to get up there one day and talk about the Croydon update. And Scott Moody, do you know him? He runs an organization called the New Hampshire Center for Economic Policy, and they're getting into school choice. And they've actually hired me. We haven't quite started this yet, but to go around to small towns to talk to them about how to do tuitioning. So we're going to talk about that at Pork Fest. We're going to have Jason Bedrick from Cato. He's coming to speak.
Yep, we knew Jason.
And Leslie Heiner from the Friedman Foundation for Educational Choice, who are apparently changing their name soon. They're making a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know why or what, but anyway, so Leslie is coming.
It used to be ESO, now it's EXO.
Oh, it's going to the McDonald's Friedman Foundation.
Wow. Oh, man.
AT&T.
Or whoever. Yeah, AT&T. Planet Starbucks.
Verizon.
Delta Dental.
The Delta Delta.
Dental Freedman Society.
That's not even funny.
No, but that's how it goes. That's how it goes. We are willing to rename our studio if you'd like to give us a large sum of money, which we will then give to CNHT because they do good work, and we just use the space. But, I think it's not great, but I mean, it's great that we have the opportunity to have this discussion every couple weeks or months because it is such a huge deal. People have been programmed generationally to just stick their kids in the school and then they get them out and then they stick them in a crappy university and they get a degree and they have debt and then they go do something. And that's there's not a lot of thought to it. There's not a lot of energy or excitement.
That's right.
Not a lot of interest. The culture and the economy has come to a point where it's very difficult for a lot of families to stay home or to redirect their children to different forms of education. And so, talking about the cost alone, and I talk about the cost, and if you want to get somebody really mad at you, particularly if they're on your local school board, is you tell them how much it costs per child to educate your student.
Or down per class, right? I mean,
Yeah,
this
right,
is the thing.
because we talked about this last time,
Yeah.
too, and it's huge. The amount of
is.
money is enormous.
Right. It's like you think about, and I was trying to get Frank Edelblue to do some of these. We're going to call it, do the math with Frank Edelblue, right? So you take a kid, $15,000. He's taken 6 courses. It's $2,500 for him to take a history course, and this is where I'm saying, or for $69,
Right.
he could get a better teacher that covers more material, and he has the internet, and there are forums you can go and ask
He
questions.
can
And he
actually
can hit
take this
rewind.
class while
Right.
he's in this public
Right.
school.
Yeah,
And
that's
that's
right.
one kid paying $2,000. There's 25 kids. That's $50,000
Per class.
That one classroom. Where is that going?
That's 62,500 when I do the math.
Okay, whichever.
I am completely surrounded by people with STEM degrees and rocket scientists.
Right. to one significant place, whatever. It's a ton of money.
Yeah.
For that one class, and then you've got that teacher teaching 6 classes. Where's this money going? Nobody stops and does the math. Nobody stops and goes.
Because the teacher isn't taking that much money home,
No.
and the building doesn't
the
cost
teacher's
that.
wondering where the hell the money is too.
And the building doesn't cost that much money to run.
Right.
And at some point, and a principal and a vice principal and a secretary. The rest of them are worthless overhead. Oh, and the janitorial service at night.
So, yeah, but it's, nobody stops to think about what does it cost, what should it cost. And while on the one hand, I appreciate what you're saying about schools and the right kind of schools, and you don't want to completely redesign things for no reason and throw out a lot of good things. If there were no public schools and today we said, you know what, we're going to let the government take responsibility for schools, the things you would build would look nothing like what we have now.
No, they wouldn't necessarily be a housing in which you pile a lot of people.
Yeah, and the problems they were solving were not they need a focused environment. It's just like, okay, we got a huge area and we have a few people who are smart enough to teach people. We have to bring everybody to them.
Yeah.
Right? It had nothing to do with, this is the optimal environment. The optimal environment is walking around with your parents and learning what they know.
But and that's true, and whatever is needed in the town and so on. But I read something recently by a guy named Roger Schenck. He's also going to be speaking at PorcFest, actually. He's a famous artificial intelligence researcher, and over the recent years, he started focusing on education. And one of the things, I just read one of his books, and one of the things I found out that I never knew before was that the curriculum that we all see, the STEM curriculum, was actually designed by what university?
It was for Harvard.
For Harvard. So
in 1892.
In 1892, some big mucky muck said this is what you need to get a good education at Harvard, and it was this algebra, geometry, history, but these certain level of things that they didn't know what was going to be coming in 100 years, 150 years, and yet that's still the same exact curriculum.
But it's still also a very good mix to have. I mean, a true liberal arts degree, not designed by liberals, designed by classical liberals, is in fact a lot of what you need to know. You need to know about how the world works, how it got where it got to.
I had a teacher. He wasn't. I had a teacher in high school, an English teacher in high school. For some reason, I had him 3 out of 4 years. I had the same teacher. And he had a list of 100 books you should read before you leave high school. Mm-hmm. And this is the kind of stuff. This was part of the classical liberal education. You read the law to learn to become a lawyer. You read the literature to learn about people and human nature and all these other things. And then you talked to people about it, and you had discussions about what it meant to your history and your culture and your society. And I had read a dozen of them, maybe. Yeah. And I really didn't start reading until I was in 9th or 10th grade. I had a friend who'd read like 50 of them, and he was like the smartest person I knew. And most of the kids in the class were like, And this is in the late 70s, early 80s.
Right.
And now if you gave them that list, they'd be like, Water for Elephants isn't on here, or,
Yeah. Where's the audio book?
But the thing is, too, there's a line I love from Joseph Campbell, who taught at Sarah Lawrence.
I know he's writing well. I've read many of his books.
So he was in one of his early classes. He's just blitzing through all this literature. You need to read this. You need to read this. You need to read this. And at one point, 3 or 4 of the girls come up to him. 3 or 4 of the young women come up to him and say, "Look, we got other classes. We have stuff to do. We can't do all this reading." And he looked at him and he said, "Oh, you have the rest of your life to do the reading, right?" Which is my view of the liberal arts curriculum. You have the rest of your life to do that reading. You don't need to do it by the time you're 18 or 22. What you need to know is how to actually do the reading and tell that you're doing the reading correctly, and how to cross-read and cross-check and talk to other people about whether you're getting it or you've totally missed it. But to say, you have to plow through this material by this date, there's a name for that. It's astrology. Right? Yes, by age 22 you must have read these books. What?
Right. Developmentally, everybody's different.
But you have to have at least read a taste of each of those. Of each of those genres, maybe.
Well, you need to know how to read.
So out of the 100 books, it may be there'd be 10 genres, and you would pick one from each one, and you would read it, and then you would discuss how do you go about reading this? What did you get out of it? And you know what? Here's what you missed. Now go back and read it again. I'd rather have kids reading the same book 5 times, which, that's my personal preference. That's how I learned to read, was by reading. I'd just read the book, and then I'd read it again maybe a month later, and you notice all the stuff that you didn't notice the first time around, right? Or you sort of, it's in there now, it's changed how you look at things differently, you come back, and the really great books, I'd rather have 10 books and have kids read them. I don't want to do the math wrong. 10 books read 10 times rather than 100 books read once. Right?
Well, and ultimately, it really doesn't matter how many of those books they read if they know how to read and they know how to learn from reading, which most kids don't because they've been trying to prevent that skill for over 100 years.
And the idea of a curriculum totally undermines that by saying, here is the collection of facts and skills that you must have, as opposed to if you've got 5 really solid skills, but you know how to add a 6th and a 7th and an 8th, then you're educated. Otherwise, you're just trained.
Well, that's I've always said I wanted my schools to teach my kids how to think, not what to think, and they're not very good at that.
And that really is the point about great teachers, and again, why schools done right actually are a benefit. The good teachers that I remember were entertaining. The chemistry teacher blew things up. The physics teacher was a mad scientist. The mathematical teacher talked about strange curves and hyperdimensional universes.
The English teacher was on the desk screaming.
And here's the thing: at that
barbaric
time,
yop, or whatever.
At that time, you were lucky.
I didn't have any of those teachers.
No. If you had a teacher who was there and happened to be in your school, that was awesome. Now there's the internet.
And I went to one of those class-sensitive things at grammar school, that I had to earn my way into by passing a test to show I was smart enough to justify being there.
But now, it is a different world right now, and that's why I'm saying if you were to sit down and go, okay, we have all these kids, they need to learn something. Really, the last thing you would do is say, let's put them on buses and send them and expose them to a handful of adults rather than the entire world, and essentially keep them off their phones, keep them off the internet.
And they're on them anyway.
Yeah, and they're on them anyway.
But
sort of the same way people are texting while driving.
Yeah.
Well, right. But the approach under those circumstances would be to embrace the internet. Look, they're on their damn phones. Make sure you got or their iPads. You got the damn internet service in the school. But
that's the damn internet.
But let the teacher be engaging and entertaining. Hire the best teachers. And say, let me get you started on this topic.
We're going to run out of time. We're going to run out of time.
Let me get you started on this topic.
We are on the damn internet, and we're also on a damn schedule.
Yeah, and then research it on your iDevices.
Yeah.
And let's talk about it.
And then follow the interests of each child.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, we got 20 seconds. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah.
Always
Thanks for
great
having
to have
us.
you guys here. We will be back next week. This is show 144. I think I said show 150 is in June or July. Anyway, we'll try to plan something special for that, and maybe we'll have you guys back.
Sequicentennial?
Yes. Very good. All right, so thanks for tuning in.